A Martian? Wowie wow, I'd hate to meet a creature like that on a dark night.
Hello, and welcome to Shut Up and Watch. I'm Alicia, and today my guest is Mona Sharaf.
Hello, that's my name.
What are we talking about, Mona?
We're talking about the first movie Alicia's ever seen on her MoviePass, so a glorious day. Ready Player One. I feel like that should have a little sound effect with it.
In a world.
It's like, what's that thing? How does the GameCube go?
Yeah, it was kind of a big deal, my first MoviePass experience. Mona is, I would say, a MoviePass vet.
Well, I've had it for a couple of weeks now. I really hadn't seen... Well, here's the problem with MoviePass, is that once you get it, you want to see every movie, but then you remember all your friends still have to pay for movies. So it's just kind of like this situation where nobody could see movies with me, but I want to see movies, and I don't like going to the movies alone.
Yeah, I've done it once in my life, and it caused me to have, like, a quarter-life crisis.
What did you see?
Interstellar.
Okay, that's a bad movie to see alone.
Yeah, I remember I went home afterwards, and my mom was like, you need to rake the leaves in the yard. And I was like, okay, I need to rake the leaves in the yard. I went out, started raking the leaves, and I was standing there, and, like, a single tear, like, rolled down my face. And I was like, oh, I'll never be the same.
See, after seeing that was the first time you saw Timothy Chalamet and you didn't even know it?
Yeah, I didn't even... Oh,
that's
God,
what was
that adds
traumatizing about
another
it.
layer. Oh, he's like... Yeah. Anyway. But also the good thing is that, like, now I can see all the movies that I don't necessarily think are going to be good, but I just want to, like, join the discourse of talking about them or just shitting on them.
I.e. Wrinkle in Time, for sure.
That's what we're doing right after this.
Yeah, I've heard that it kind of ruins the book for you if you were a book reader back in the day. So I'm excited to have my childhood ruined. That's and for free, essentially.
But I'm going to enjoy a nice hot meal while I do it.
Yeah, we go to Movie Tavern in Williamsburg, Virginia. Oh, boy. It is a ride and a half. You order food, beverages, and there's a waiter in a movie theater.
It's just like medieval times, but with movies.
Instead of jousting.
And instead of dragon's blood, you get nachos with queso.
Oh, their quesadillas are pretty good. So.
You know, we should have like 2 new sponsors now, MoviePass and Movie Tavern.
I know, honestly. Well, I listen to some
we're talking them up.
But podcasts, just the same, like 4 people advertising podcasts.
It's always Blue Apron,
yeah.
Squarespace,
Me
MeUndies,
Undies,
Casper mattress, and yeah.
I really want to order Me Undies. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, Stamps.com, and then that there's one other. It's like TurboTax, but not.
Is Squarespace the one for jobs? There's a job searching one too.
No, ZipRecruiter?
ZipRecruiter! That's what it is. Always. It's so infuriating.
Well, yeah, this is brought to you by ZipRecruiter.
We wish. You wish.
My dream. Let's talk briefly about the plot. Basically, the movie is set in a dystopia in the year 2044.
I already have a thought about this, okay? Because as soon as the movie started, I was like, if the world looks like it does in the movie in 2044, I will genuinely be concerned. Because I'm just like, there are houses, like, in stacks, that's what they call them. Yeah. And first of all, Ohio? And I was just like, if Ohio is that bad enough, what's it gonna be like in, like, New York City? That's what I was thinking the entire time. I'm like, that's just my first thought. Like, we're at the point where we know that the future's not gonna look, like, we're not gonna be in, like, flying cars and things like that in the next 20 years. So, can you keep it realistic, Steven Spielberg?
Come on, Steve.
Anyways, you can continue with the plot.
Yeah, well, we follow the protagonist, Wade Watts, and he's living in the Stacks, which is, like, I guess their answer to overpopulation. He lives in this weird structure of, like, doop. I'm doing it with my hands.
They're like
it's like scaffolding.
RVs, kind of like stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
What are the words? Not RVs.
Not
Trailers.
RV starring Robin Williams. And we follow his journey through the Oasis, which is a virtual reality video game, which has pretty much taken over the world. Before his death, the creator of the video game, James Halliday, set up an Easter egg inside the game, which, if found, will grant the player Halliday's fortune and complete ownership of the game. And the video game and the movie is basically just a world full of different multimedia references throughout time, heavily dominated by 80s pop culture.
Yeah, besides the Halo 3 reference, which we both
Shut
got.
up. If you mention that one more time, I'm exiting this room.
I'm sorry, but they had to preference this, I had an Xbox 360 when I was a kid. I played Beatles Rock Band and Lego Star Wars.
I did the Beatles Rock Band, but on the Wii?
That's
The WII,
that's
if you will.
That's a tragedy. It just was better on the Xbox. Did you ever? I would play the drums and sing at the same time.
No, I was nowhere near that advanced.
Yeah, you didn't play enough. But I was like, I don't get any of these references, and I have a pretty good pop culture, even gamer culture knowledge, and I'm kind of like,
well, no, I feel like we both got the major ones, the majority of them.
Yeah. They're pretty blatant, too. I don't think that... Maybe there were a lot of subtle ones that we missed, but, they just had, the Iron Giant there, and then they go into The Shining. Those
were probably my two favorite things. Iron Giant and The Shining.
The Shining scene was insane. To preferences, their virtual reality characters go literally into the Shining movie. They must have filmed it, actually, at that hotel.
I don't know. I don't know.
Because I know that the hotel's still up and running. So I'm kind of just that looked pretty realistic.
Yeah.
I don't know how I felt about that, but that entire sequence, we were just sitting on the edge of our seats, kind of just yodeling, oh my god!
I was reading all these reviews about it, and people were like, it's great, it's unapologetic, it's sacrilegious. And I was like, I don't know, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Call me a sinner.
Take me to church. I'm confessing.
Confessing to loving too much. Okay, so the film is based on a book by Ernest Cline, who seems kind of a little bit like an insufferable douche. The book got okay reviews. I know a fair amount of people have read it. I feel like it's a typical young adult dystopian type of thing. And I just want to know if the book, which I haven't read, is self-aware at all about the potential danger or obnoxiousness of this 80s obsession, and if the film is as well, because I just can't tell. I was listening to NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour. Shout out to Tasha Robinson, Glenn Weldon, Linda Holmes, etc. Stephen Thompson. And they played a clip of one of Ernest Cline's stand-up routines where he talks about his obsession with 80s pop culture as a kind of animalistic urge that he's constantly tempted to just succumb to. He's talking about I just want to watch Akira again. I just want to watch blah, blah, blah again. And that kind of shows a self-awareness that I don't know if the book exhibits or if the movie is trying to get across. Well, let's talk about the cast really quick before we dive into this. We got Ty Sheridan as Wade Watts / Parzival. That's his avatar name.
Is Parzival from something?
I don't know.
It sounds familiar, but here's my thing about Ty. He is just a bootleg Miles Teller.
Oh, fuck. I never thought of that.
There are all these, young white male, Ansel Elgort types.
They look very soft.
And they just...
they all look like I molded them out of dough.
I know. And they you put on, a pair of glasses, a short-sleeved, button-up plaid shirt over a quirky t-shirt, and you call it a day. And I'm like, this man's still sexy under this outfit.
Dreamy.
Yeah, I'm like, you didn't make him into a nerd. He's just... I'm like, that could have been Miles Teller. That could have been Ansel Elgort. That honestly could have been Timothy Chalamet, and I would have been like, this is the same movie.
Yeah.
He's young, though. He's 21.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. I Googled it.
Okay, maybe I should give him a call.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, we're the same. First of all, I'm 21. I'm not in a major motion picture.
And he's from Tree of Life and Mud. I still haven't seen Mud, and I gotta because
That's good.
Coming of age type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is my jam. And then we've got Olivia Cooke, who I've seen in Bates Motel, and you have seen in Thoroughbreds, which I wanted to see.
She was really good in Thoroughbreds. I wasn't a super huge fan, I think, because my expectations were super different. I thought this was going to kind of be more of an action-packed film versus like a thought piece, because it kind of just like makes you think is it a sociopath who doesn't have feelings? Like she's like one of those people who like doesn't have emotions.
I think a psychopath.
Yeah, she's a psychopath then. She doesn't have feelings. I really liked her in that, but granted, the entire point of that is that she didn't have any emotions. I think it was more due to the writing that I liked in her character. She was in Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she was cute in that.
Yeah, she was cute in that.
I liked her
It was a cute
in
movie.
this. She was cute. I mean, the whole thing, at one point in the movie, like, Wade, like, says, oh, my name's Wade. Her name is Artemis, or, like, a little character name in the world. He's like, my name's Wade. What's your real name? And she was like, this isn't who I am. I don't look like this in the real world. You wouldn't like me. And at the end, all they did is gave her a birthmark. And I kind of was like, if you think she's ugly because she has a birthmark, don't look at me.
A Prince Zuko birthmark, which should probably turn him on even more, honestly.
Yeah, it's kind of sexy with two eyes.
Yeah, and she comes out in her, like, grungy-ass tights, like, little booty shorts, and her, like, sweater falling off her arm. I'm like,
if she's homeless, how does she dress like that? Right? That was a Joy Division shirt. It was like the Joy Division shirts they sell at Forever 21. Oh my gosh, diddly darn, I was pissed.
Yeah, I want to talk more about that love story later, because, oh boy. So yeah, Olivia Cooke played Samantha Cooke / Artemis. That's her avatar name. Then we got Ben Mendelsohn as Nolan Sorrento, the big bad.
But okay, here's my problem during the entire film, and this is a major personal problem. Sorrento is the name of my favorite Iranian restaurant in Northern Virginia. So every time,
but it's like an Italian.
Yeah, I don't know, but the entire movie I was kind of sitting there, and I was like, "Yo, I'd literally kill a man for some Iranian food right now." So that was a huge problem for me, but I eventually got over it.
Wow, I
didn't have that problem?
No, surprisingly. But he was good. He was one of my favorites, actually, because he looked like an 80s villain from like those types of movies, and he looks so much like the vice principal from Breakfast Club.
Yeah, you were right about that.
Just gotta throw on that like gray suit with the vaguely bell-bottom tailoring, and then we've got, so I didn't know about this until like the reveal, but I think I can say it. It's not really a spoiler. Skip the next like 10 seconds if you haven't seen this. Lena Waithe as Helen Harris / H. She's from Master of None. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, that episode of Master of None, I mean, like, rest in peace Aziz Ansari. Like, I'm kind of done with it for now. But that one episode is just like the best episode of television I've seen.
What, the Thanksgiving one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was the best episode of television I've seen in years. Yeah. Like, that just had so many layers to it, and she was so great in it. So yeah, when they revealed her in this scene, I was like, oh, it totally makes sense.
I know. The whole time I was like, who the fuck is that?
Because they were like doing a little one of those like Batman voice mufflers. Cause she was like, her character was like her little animated character. What's that word?
Avatar? New Avi?
was like a big macho pacho man. And so when she opens the door and it's her, we were like, what? It was pretty. And then we'll continue. I'm sure you're gonna get to the 11-year-old boy.
Oh yeah, I'm making my way down. Next we got, why is this? Can you guys tell me? We have T.J. Miller in this film, playing someone named iRock.
So funny, because again, he's a big macho pacho, like a skull as a body, and then it's T.J. Miller's voice, and you're just like, what the legitimate fuck has happened?
But also, like, you heard about the sexual assault stuff, right? Did you hear about that? Yeah, it
was bad.
It's bad. It's from like when he was in college or when the girl was in college, and it's bad. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't like TJ Miller that much to begin with.
I mean, yeah, nobody really did, but it's just like, oof. And why didn't they just dub him out? Like, I feel like it was possible. They did make all the avatars look just sort of vaguely like the people playing them, but I think if you had just thrown somebody else's voice in there, I wouldn't have looked at that character and been like, that looks like TJ Miller.
Yeah, and they could have chosen another funny voice. Like,
I know.
They could have chosen, like, you know who would be good for that? Seth Rogen. If it was Seth Rogen's voice, I would have chortled to Jamaica and backwards.
I would have had to bring a fan with me, if you know what I'm saying.
Seth Rogen's voice is so sexy.
He just got a new Netflix thing. Did you see that?
No, what did he get?
It's called Netflix obtains Seth Rogen or some shit like that.
Well, Netflix.
Like, I'd like to obtain Seth Rogen.
You would?
I would indeed. Yeah.
Okay, like, he's a good person.
What, you don't think he's objectively the most sexy man you've ever seen?
In Hollywood, particularly, yeah. But, okay, Netflix released 92 things this month, so how am I supposed to keep track of every single thing?
They released a lot of, like, Indian movies the other day. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Were any of them good? Did you watch any of them?
No, I don't know.
So maybe 50 out of that 92.
But, and then we got, my man Simon Pegg as Ogden Morrow. And also somebody else, but I won't say who.
Simon Pegg.
Simon
Oh my
Pegg.
god. That was just shocking. First of all, his American accent sucked.
Yeah.
He was like, oh yeah, it's me. And I'm like, okay, Simon. Go back
Simon,
to Scotty.
And then we got Mark Rylance as James Halliday, the creator. Simon Pegg plays his partner, who also created the video game. And he is interesting. We'll talk more about that later. Then we've got 3 names I did not know before this movie. Philip Zhao as Sho, Win Murasaki as Daito, and Hannah John Kamen, is that how you say that? As Finale Xandor. I'm guessing you say that finale. It's F''Nale.
Yeah,
maybe
it's finale.
Finale, but
It's finale.
it's snappier to, yeah.
Finale.
And she had I thought she had a major Blade Runner thing going on with her bangs and, like, her structured suit, those strong shoulder blades.
True.
Yeah.
She kind of was just, like, there for me. Like, she just kind of, like, served a purpose and nothing else. And she didn't even end up succeeding.
And I didn't know her name until I looked it up online. Like, her character's name.
True. Like, it sounds familiar, but I'm like, I wouldn't have known that, you know.
Okay, so let's dive back into this idea of the movie being just one big ol' nostalgia fest, which is contributed to by Spielberg's direction, since he's, you know, the king of the 80s.
It's a really popular thing, this nostalgia thing. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy has done that. That's what they've thrived off of, too, with, like, the awesomeness mix.
And I feel like a large reason that Thor Ragnarok did so well was because it was also stylized like that.
Well, I could go off on tangent on days. That's because Marvel has this very specific formula now that they have just slapped on to, like, Iron Man and Thor Ragnarok that, like, worked for Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a bunch of shenanigans. That's all I have to say. It's a bunch of shenanigans. Marvel, get your shit together. But anyways, back to Ready Player One.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, we saw, like, the guy next to us was, like, this long-haired, probably early 30s dude who was, like, screaming by the end of the film.
He was. We called him Fuck Yeah because
at the end
that's what I heard out of his mouth.
Fuck yeah.
He was by himself. I didn't think he was at first, but once we left, I sure realized that he was by himself. There's no shame in that. But I think he heard me talking about him. Anyways, I'm sorry if you're out there. I'm sure he's listening to this right now.
He had long hair.
Yeah.
He was drinking. He drank two beers. I watched him do that. I mean, like, where else is the time to drink beer besides in a movie theater? Prime time. But he's probably the kind of, like, not the prime audience, but, like, a person
Pretty
of that
close.
age is, like, maybe even was born in the late 80s or like thrives off of that. Look at my like 80s reference t-shirt. I can't think of anything from the 80s.
I think it's mostly a lot of it is people who were like preteens and teens during that time, but a lot of it is also people who are like near our age, maybe a little bit older, who just have this obsession with that era. And like I'm also thinking of all these like science teachers I had in high school, fanboys to the max, regardless of age.
This also capitalized on the fact that this could be a reality, like hypothetically now, like if you really wanted to. Like, it does sound cool. Like, I'd love to be able to just, like, pop on a pair of glasses and, like, enter a real world. But also, this entire film is just, like, nobody does anything else. Like, I'm just like, how do these people sustain themselves? So, I don't know. Like, it, like, shows how shitty that world is, but also kind of idealizes the Oasis at the same time.
Exactly. So, I couldn't tell... So, the thing that would really determine, like, how much I like this movie is... not whether or not it has some sort of social commentary, but whether or not it attempts to have one, but, like, fails to actually execute it. Like, I have no problem with escapism and just having fun and whatever and, you know, kind of reveling in the nostalgia, but it almost seemed like it was flailing around in this half-assed, commentary on the 80s obsession. I couldn't really tell what it was saying. And that's what bothers me.
And I mean, I recently have kind of switched over the mindset. Sometimes movies are just created to, like, entertain. But you're right, during this movie, there's constantly a limbo of, like, you're showing that the world is destroyed because of the Oasis. Like, literally destroyed. You're showing how this company, IOI, is, like, taking the Oasis and turning it into an even shittier world and literally killing people because of it. Because in the book, in the movie, and this is not like a surprise, but Samantha Cook talks about how her dad died in one of their, like, essentially, like they're, like, camps that, like, to repay debt. And I'm like, you can't do all this and then be like, but yay, it's awesome, and everything is fine.
And at the end, nothing has really changed. Like, once somebody wins the game, he's like, oh, we all split it equally. And I'm like, my heart is warm. And then they're like, and then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, nobody's allowed to play. And I'm like, great, what the fuck are people doing the rest of the days of the week? The same thing. And that kind of, like, bothered me, too. I'm like, that, like, and like, I get the concept, like, encouraging you to, like, go out into the real world, not be with your technology. But then what are they gonna do? If you live in the stacks, if you live in a literal trailer, like, 100 feet in the air, right? And you live based on the Oasis, what do you do on that Tuesday and Thursday? Yeah. And he's just like, is this weird? It's at the very end. He's like, he's sitting on the lap, his, like, girlfriend sitting on his lap, and they're, like, making out. And, like, that's like, in
Tuesdays
this, like,
and Thursdays.
artsy apartment with, like, shabby, but, like vanity books on the walls.
It's like a what's the one room?
Like a loft.
Like a
loft.
loft,
yeah.
But it was like exposed brick, and there were old vintage video games around, and they were like,
I'm like, ooh, poverty chic.
Yeah, I'm like, Tuesdays and Thursdays are for sexy. I was just so annoyed by that part, and that's the end. Yeah. Like, that's when, like, the screen goes dark, and I was like,
and also I was like, you're like 12. I mean,
you're right. Yeah, he's like, what? He's supposed to be like,
I don't know how old.
That's another plot.
But it felt so forced. Overall, the love story, oh god, was just so cheesy and forced, and all the lines. I mean, part of it was played off for humor, like him being a total soft boy and telling her he loves her right off the bat. And I'm like, yeah, that works because it's cringy. But then it actually happens, and I'm like,
But if you think about this, as we talked about before, the prime audience is, like, these nerdy boys. A lot of times they're single, right? Yeah. And they're not going to go to a movie to have somebody be like, yeah, you're going to die alone. No one's going to love you. Cause, like,
that's honestly, why I go.
Yeah, I want to have that reinforced. But, like, those like nerds go in there
Yeah.
and they're like walking in alone or like single, and then they want to see like an ideal world. Because like honestly, if I was a gamer girl or guy, it'd be so ideal to meet another person on one of these platforms and then fall in love, and you meet in real life and it's perfect sexual chemistry. And I'm like, that's not what happened. First of all, if Ty looked like a real nerd, he wouldn't be sexy. Right?
Also, I mean, this world would just be full of catfishing.
Yeah,
like,
and they all lived in the same gosh darn place.
Yeah.
They all lived within 10 feet of each other randomly.
And also, I just think it's another, if they're gonna kind of have this critique of certain aspects of the world, then why wouldn't they have a critique of this manic pixie dream girl shit instead of reinforcing it? I was like, maybe they're just going for that classic 80s sci-fi or adventure love story plot line, but then you could still do it tastefully. Or it was just, she was a bit of a progression from a normal manic pixie dream girl, I think, but she was just like the badass type.
Well, that's the point, is that it's like you find another gamer girl, right?
Yeah.
And she has to be beautiful because, like, despite the birthmark, like, she's a very typically beautiful girl.
Yeah.
And like that's like kind of the expectation for like girls who like video games. And that was the most frustrating part for me. I was also just like, if I were her, I would not be comfortable with just like dating a guy and falling in love and apparently moving in together. And you're right. They actually, the reasonable age range for this would be like 16, 17.
Yeah.
But he, like, in the movie lives with his aunt because his parents, like, mysteriously died. They don't really go into that at all. And her parents have died, but he lives with his aunt and stuff. I don't know. It just was a lot of things they like did in order to make the plot make sense, but not elaborate at all.
Yeah.
Like she like said, "Welcome to the rebellion," and then they like they found her, and they never talked about that ever again.
Yeah, they were in some like headquarters with a ragtag bunch of like freedom fighters, and he's like, okay, and then it just goes on.
And another problem like that is with the IOI. So the big villain in this movie is another tech company, IOI, who's like the second largest after Oasis. And so the whole point of you get all these these keys, then you get the bulk of the shares in the Oasis. And so they're trying to do it so they can sell out advertisements and things like that. And I thought that was a really great commentary because I was just like, that's such an... I swear to gosh diddly darn, I am a victim of Facebook retargeting. I will buy things if Facebook targets it. I'm the worst kind of person.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's like pretty accurate because the guy is like, we can sell 80% of their like field of view before they have seizures. And I'm like, that would be a really good spot to be like, hey, remember, technology sucks and is taking advantage of you. But no, that's not what they did.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting. I kept thinking about net neutrality during that. I was like, timely. And, yeah, I thought that was definitely a good sort of villain route to go. But I also... why did he have his password on a Post-it note on his chair?
I think that was kind of funny.
Is it
like,
supposed to be like an old guy who doesn't know how to use tech? Yeah.
That was the funny part, because he just kind of seemed like a dictator
Yeah.
in a way, or just like somebody who like owns a large company by chance and is like, I'm going to do all the things the way I want it and not the
Yeah,
way...
and someone is like Cyrano talking pop culture references in his ear through like a little earpiece.
Yeah, that was a funny part. That was funny. There were some really real moments in the film, but overall... And we enjoyed it. Let's preface this, all our criticisms, I feel at least I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I had fun.
Yeah, it was kind of a wild ride. And like at the end, it's all the characters kind of like in battle.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool to see. And like, I guess if you really thought about it, like, so if you die in the Oasis, then you zero out, which means you lose everything up until the point that you die. And you like restart new. And so at the point Wade gives this a rousing speech, he's like, zero out for the future of Oasis.
He does a little say anything fist pump.
And nobody comes for 10 seconds.
Well, no, it's not say anything. It's Breakfast Club. I'm a
like,
fool. There was a little guy holding a boombox at one point, though.
Was there?
Yeah. There was also Freddy Krueger. I looked this up online. I saw like screenshots of Anyway.
See, I think that's in the middle, but what's it called? They all are, like, riled up in the end, and they all come and are ready to die in the Oasis and lose everything they have to save it. So it's kind of like, that could be a little, like, commentary on, like, net neutrality and how, like, people kind of rallied around it, but granted, we didn't actually.
Yeah.
You tweeted no net neutrality. You texted that one number, and then you got bored halfway through the survey, and then you left it.
Yeah.
So I know that's what you guys did. Whoever is listening out there. But yeah, I don't know. It could have been it was a nice moment, but then everything else kind of canceled it out.
Yeah, and also after the battle, when he gets to the final key of the Easter egg, I was like, I don't really know what's going on. It felt like the ending was going to be it was going to tie together a bunch of clues that we had understood, like, as an audience, and it was going to put together the puzzle pieces in a way that we could, like, understand and relate to. But he just, like, goes off about this video game, like, the first video game to ever have an Easter egg, and we're like, okay. And he just, like, spurts off facts and plays the game, and he's like, I did it! And you're like, great.
And then there's this whole dramatic, like, he still has to prove himself after getting the key.
I know. There were, like, 3 tests afterwards to show that he had, like, integrity. And I was like,
Okay, I'm done with this. I know. And that's this thing, it's just, like, also, like, I'm the kind of person, so I see, like, every movie, like, once. I've seen everything, and I love them. But I don't get quotes a lot of times. I don't get references. I forget actors' names, things like that. And that kind of reinforced the mindset of, like, if you don't know anything, you don't deserve to be here, which is so frustrating, like, in any field of interest, like games, music, like, and that's, like, just because you don't know James Halliday's third goldfish's name doesn't mean that you don't, like, love it as much as the next person.
Yeah. That's what... when I was listening to Pop Culture Happy Hour, Tasha Robinson said the experience was both really validating and really exclusive at the same time. I think that sums it up perfectly, because it's just assuming that we all love the same things, and that if you don't love those things, you're either not as cool or not as smart, and it's just like,
And that's, like, a huge problem, just, like, in general. Because there's, like, it kind of, for me personally, gets transitioned from, like, when I was a kid, like, when I was, like, super fan of One Direction. Like, if I didn't know, like, their security guard's daughter's name, then I was like, oh, fuck, I'm not a real fan, right? So, like, now you're older, like, if you don't know these indie bands and these kinds of things, then you're kind of just like, who am I? I don't know. And I think, like, especially for, like, people who are really into video games, like, their video game knowledge is super, like, personal to them based on what they're interested in. And also, like, if they forget something or they don't know something, it's, like, it's a really shitty feeling. And to have, like, a whole movie be like, oh, yeah. And then, like, okay, excuse me. IOI had 6 jajillion people who were all video game experts working on this, and none of them could figure it out. And
well, they didn't have heart, Mona.
Oh, that one redheaded girl had some heart. She had some,
yeah.
And she knew the thing.
She should have won.
I was kind of hoping for that.
Yeah.
I was like, female takeover at the end. But I'm
She
like,
was just adorable.
but that was a nice at the end when everybody in IOI was cheering for him.
Yeah.
Because they, like, broadcast his winning at the end, and everybody, like, strips away their personal preferences and is like, oh, yeah, for the fate of video games.
Fight the man. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a nice moment. But I was like, literally nobody could have figured it out besides this, like, 15-year-old dweeb. Legitimately. But, like, the whole thing was complicated because they had Halliday's, like, entire consciousness recorded in a library.
Yeah.
And it was just, like, you really had to, that's how they, like, figured out the keys, the Easter egg was by, like, the clues in his memories. And, like, how'd you find that one random ass day?
I know.
That one random ass word. I'm like, did you literally spend your entire life in here? Because,
I know.
Oh, it was so frustrating.
And I did like the fact that the key in the end, they made this really heavy-handed since, you know, at the end, Wade, like, literally says this out loud. But he says that the key wasn't necessarily knowledge about the games, but it was more emotional, and it was about Halliday and his partner, and regret, and it was more personal than
not making
just
the lead, taking the lead.
Yeah, yeah. And I like that because that hints that maybe there was some awareness of the consequences that this sort of obsession can have on people, but at the same time, it didn't really do anything.
Well, that was the thing, is that apparently this had been going on for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? So what Halliday did, and apparently they were like gunters, which were egg hunters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you essentially took up 5 years of people's lives just searching for these keys. Right? So if the whole message at the end was to remember, there's something greater than games.
Yeah.
Friendship and love. Like,
now you get to keep playing the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was kind of frustrated with that.
But also it's funny because, in the end, spoiler alert, this isn't really a huge spoiler. They kind of reveal this not so far into the movie. But, the key to everything is that this nerdy guy literally, got dumped by a girl.
I know.
And I'm like, yeah, I mean...
and he didn't even get dumped.
He just didn't go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm kind of just
but that's actually, it's annoying, but it's validating at the same time. It's annoying because it seems like it's giving that kind of thing an okay and glorifying it, but I like it at the same time because it's realistic, and it could potentially, if the movie worked a little harder, maybe shows flaws and that type of thing. Also, something to reference or just to refer to is that this movie was 2 hours and 20 minutes long. It didn't need that.
I just think there was a lot of time spent on everything, but not a lot of feelings of conclusion. Granted, when I walked out of the film, I was happy with it. I wasn't oh yeah, but wait, look at all these because there were the plot gaps were there, but the plot gaps are not that important.
Yeah,
because, a movie like this is not gonna keep everything accurate, but it was just about the inconsistency of the message or non-message of the movie. It just kept referencing things, but at the end it kind of just was let's forget about everything and go back to the love story and friendship, because that's all that matters. The friendship thing was kind of nice, though.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that, it showed a group of people who had similar interests banding together, outside of the video games.
And they were diverse. But at the same time, they banded together because they had similar interests. And it reminds me of when I was in middle and high school, and I was everybody needs to like all the same shit that's on the posters on my wall for me to have any interest in them. And I think we all sort of go through that phase. And so it's accurate depicting that, but it's why won't you show the problems with that? Because part of growing, this is, supposed to be based off of lots of different coming-of-age stories from the 80s, and it just isn't really a coming-of-age story. I don't see any character arcs. They don't really seem to learn that much. The whole time, their goal is still to win. Wade's reasons behind winning change a little bit, after he meets Artemis, but overall, I think they're kind of the same at the end.
Yeah, and he does it with a slightly better motivation, but he still wins in the end. And even her motivation, I didn't really fully understand.
Yeah.
She was my parents died because of IOI, so I want to get Oasis. And I kind of was I understand it vaguely, but then are you going to take Oasis and use it to, destroy IOI? I don't know. And also, another weird thing that they just kind of brought in was his aunt and her abusive boyfriend.
Yeah.
And then never talked about it ever again.
Yeah.
And spoiler, they die because of him. They die because of him. And I was just and he doesn't even blink an eye. He, there's a little scene where he gets a little teary-eyed, and then that's it. And I understand he didn't have a good relationship with his aunt, but, this person apparently had how's you since your parents died?
Yeah.
Like, I'd have a little bit of remorse.
And later he goes, "You killed my mom's sister."
Yeah, and I'm kind of like you. We don't talk. Like, I would have really liked if there was kind of like a surprise about his mom and dad, and their relationship to the world, or Oasis, or something like that. I think that would have been really, really cool. Because I'm like, if movies like this, which are just entertaining, like kind of like Love, Simon. Well, Love, Simon had a really good message, but like ultimately the point of the film was to entertain. When you have the surprise ending like that, it's kind of exciting and fun.
Yeah.
And that's what I was kind of hoping from this. But you're right,
because they did do that with a bunch of other stuff. So
yeah,
they easily could have. Yeah.
I would have loved a little like, oh yeah, his father was Holiday. Bum bum bum. Not that.
Yeah, I actually thought that was gonna happen at one point. Yeah. When he was looking at the pictures on his wall. Yeah. Which was creepy as hell.
Yeah, because there's one photo of Simon Pegg's character. What's his name?
It sounds like a troll name. Oh, Ogden Morrow.
Ogden Morrow, because there's a picture of Ogden. So the whole point is that all his walls are like newspapers and magazine articles about Halliday. So Ogden Morrow and his wife Kira. There's like a family photo of the two of them, and I kind of was like, oh no, is he their child? No, he's not.
Yeah, also speaking back to Ty, those voiceovers just kind of didn't work for me. I'm all for the voiceovers at the beginning when he's like, I was born in the year 2027 or whatever the hell, and I'm like, I don't. It's almost like
you sound just like him.
I guess they were working off of a classic sort of feel from like older adventure type movies, but it didn't work. I didn't like it. I thought it was dumb. Any questions?
Well, yeah, they just had so much backstory that they had to put in.
Yeah, and also the voiceover, like it was for the very first portion of the movie, and it just kind of dies away. And I think it just contributes to the problem in this movie where the tone is all over the place. Like, everything just seems very scattered.
Yeah, I had forgotten about the voiceover. You're right, it's a really classic kind of thing to do. But, I mean, you needed context, and I personally despise when there's that, like, intro, like, black scenes, like, the year is 1992, the city, Georgia. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? And then this is not any more, like, subtle, but it's slightly better.
Yeah. But they did both. They decided to do both. They did that and the voiceover.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Also, then just double whammy. Oh, here's my thing. This movie was not good, like, cinematically.
But it was fun.
That's the thing. At the end of the day, I was sitting there kind of, like, jumping around in my seat, and, like, if I had understood more references, I probably would have been even more excited. But there's a lot of good stuff in it.
Yeah.
There's just, like, a lot of entertaining moments, and, like, as cheesy and unrealistic as the love story is, like, I was like, oh, okay, yay, they found each other, and neither of them had anybody, and they fell in love. Also, one of the, like, friends that Wade makes as Parvis, yeah, exactly that, is an 11-year-old boy.
Yep.
And
he's got some, He's
got some sass?
Yeah, he's got some sass.
Yeah, I kind of also was like, that could have been a nice moment to be like, an 11-year-old boy is obsessed with video games? Maybe that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm all for Spielberg going back to this type of fun movie. I'm not so into, like, the Bridge of Spies type. He did Bridge of Spies, right? Didn't he?
I don't know, but I know the comparison you're making.
I saw the post just to see it, and I knew exactly what it was gonna be, and then it was that, and I was like, oh, my life is the same. But I enjoy him going back to. I know, it's just, I mean, they're good, but it's like they're good in exactly the way that you expect them to be, and I'm all for him going back to movies that are fun rather than movies that are trying to like shove important messages down your throat. But this, it almost seemed like it was trying to do both and not really succeeding at the latter. But I think it's interesting how he keeps reflecting on his sort of Peter Pan syndrome with his, coming of age stories. Super 8 seemed like a reflection in that way.
Super 8 had a lot more nuance than
Super 8, the problem that I have with this movie is we've seen, countless examples of Spielberg's abilities, and Super 8 does a lot of the things I wish Ready Player One did, and so it's hard for me to give Ready Player One a pass when I know what Spielberg can do.
But Ready Player, and I think the major problem with it is that it took on so
too much. Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem with a lot of these dystopian movies, that they're like, oh, here's the problem, everything that's the problem in this world, but like it also relates to 2018 right now. Mind blown. But in this case, they were just like shoving a lot of messages into nowhere. Honestly though, like this movie, I would not credit any of its greatness or entertainment value, or particularly its shittiness, to him that much. You know what I mean?
I agree. I think he probably made the most of it that he could.
And the thing is, with directing, I always struggle to think about a director's job, just because I'm like, they're there to figure out the like kind of like itty bitty stuff in a film, but I think about like cinematographers and the actual people who are shooting the film, and I'm kind of like, what does a director do? Because in cases like this, I think that Steven Spielberg was more just like a name or a person to associate with the film to give it a little bit of a wow, rather than a director who's actually gonna like increase the production, like the value of a film. Or
I mean, he almost becomes a character in the movie. Like his name is just looming over it the whole time, and his style and aesthetic is just an integral part of it. And also, I think in the end, my biggest qualms are probably with the writers. Yeah. And not him.
I mean, the writers were probably like, I'm just imagining either like they had somebody who had no concept behind like video game knowledge kind of writing the plot, and then like a video game expert
who is like talking over their shoulder,
like had the like piece in their ear being like, okay, now add a Halo 3 reference, now Freddy Krueger in there, now make them fall in love because that's what I would want in my life. You know what I mean? Like, I just like don't feel like this was writing that was good.
Yeah. And I wonder if, to like broaden things a little bit, I wonder if the obsession with 80s art and pop culture, which I dabble in myself. I've watched Stand By Me 80,000 times and everything else River Phoenix is in. But I wonder if it kind of comes from a feeling of displacement in current life, how art and pop culture is so unbelievably vast now. It's hard for so many people to like the same things, or it's harder than it used to be. In the 80s, there were less things to be into, and now it's just like, there's so much stuff out there. Music, movies, and maybe it's kind of wistfully looking back at a time when it was more uniform or unified.
That's how I kind of feel. I'm like, when you're younger and you're in your teenage years and you love pop boy bands and pop music, and it's okay, but as you get older, like in Katy Perry and these kinds of things is looked down upon. Partially just because you like pop music, that sucks, but also partially because these artists aren't making quality pop, which I think does exist, versus the 80s is quality pop music. And you can unashamedly like 80s pop songs and feel good about it, because nobody's looking down and being like, ew, you're listening to like One Direction, right? When you hear like Take On Me, like it's a shitty pop song, right? But everyone's kind of like, oh let's all get into this.
It's more acceptable to like old mainstream stuff than contemporary mainstream
because you're
stuff.
Still like cool by liking this like
it's
quote,
retro
unquote, vintage stuff. So I don't know, it's like a way to get your fix without being looked down upon. I don't know, because I have a huge problem with, like, I am the kind of person who simultaneously will listen to like poppy stuff but also likes my like really small, whatever. And I want to feel cool and listen to bands and songs that nobody else listens to. And I'm like, I do enjoy both of those parts, but I have to hide the first part of liking like pop stuff.
Yeah, Spotify, pop on that private session before listening to some One Direction.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do, right? I'm like, and it's kind of embarrassing, and like I'm not like ashamed about my old preferences, but like it was like a big problem when I was a kid and when I was in high school. You know, like liking these things, people would be like, "You're a weirdo." So like liking '80s music is like kind of a way out of that.
Yeah,
and cool vintage T-shirts. Honestly, who doesn't like those?
I'm still down.
We do it.
I'll pay $100 for one of those washed 30 million times soft crackly ass logo T-shirts.
The American Eagle is selling those now, and I'm like, American Eagle, I don't need any of your fitted ass T-shirts with an old ass Coca-Cola logo. Yeah. Don't trick me. Don't trick me.
Yeah. You have anything else to add?
I'd say see this. I'd say if you
I would say same.
I'd say even if you don't really have that much pop culture knowledge, it's still kind of fun to watch. The audience was really riled up, so it was not.
They were slapping their knees in there.
They were slapping the tables, the dinner tables in the movie theater, right?
The theater.
Yeah, obviously. Well, when you go to like Regal or AMC, it's theater, but when you go to Movie Tavern, it's theater.
It's ye old theater.
We're both 21, so she got a beer, I got a cider in there. We were like, oh.
Clink clink.
What a good boomerang on Instagram, like the good millennial tweens we are. I'd recommend seeing this movie. If you have MoviePass, especially, circling all the way back.
What do you have to lose? Come on.
It's free. It's free.
We're seeing A Wrinkle in Time today. Like,
Oprah
you can see Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you, Mona.
Thank you for having me on. Hopefully this will not be the last time, because I'll be seeing a lot of these movies.
I mean, I'm nervous that you're just going to become the regular host.
Yeah. And Catch On in 6 months is the name of this show is going to change to just the Mona Guest Show.
Oh, that's got a ring to it.
It does.
Thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.
What's soft and round, and you put it on a stick, and you toast it in a fire, and it's green?
I don't know, what?
A marshmallow!
Hello, Mr. Brightside. Woohoo, yeah. I'll get different volumes from distance.